Hello, and welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, attorney at law in the state of Michigan, where I've been practicing law for 25 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. I often write about this stuff for places like roadandtrack.com, and I've written a few books along the way. Today we're going to talk about why you shouldn't drive while in possession of cash. Don't drive while in possession of cash. We're going to talk about the civil forfeiture laws and how those can be easily fixed, and yet it's a topic not many people talk about. They're shocked when they hear about it. And then, of course, when they realize there's such a simple fix, they wonder why the government won't do anything about it. And, of course, you'll understand why in a second, because it's all about money. So if you don't know what the civil forfeiture laws are and why they affect you, or why you shouldn't drive with cash in your car, let's suppose one day you wake up and you're going through Craigslist looking for buys, good deals in other states. And you see somebody who lives, suppose you're in Michigan like I am, you see someone in Ohio who's got a really cool car for sale. You call the person, you look at the pictures online, and it looks like it might be a good deal. But having listened to me before, you understand you never buy a car sight unseen. So you're going to take a road trip to Ohio. And the guy says, by the way, the car is going to be $10,000. And I don't take credit cards, I don't take money orders, all I take is cash. And that's because he listens to me also. So you get $10,000 in cash, you stick it in your pocket, you hop in your car, you're driving to Ohio, somewhere across the county line or the state line. An Ohio state trooper pulls you over because you got Michigan plates in your car. I mean, he pulls you over because he says you made an illegal or improper lane change a while back. And you don't remember doing that, so for whatever reason, the trooper asks you to get out of the car and he notices a huge bulge in your pocket. And he says, what is that in your pocket, young man? And you say, oh, it's just money. And he says, may I see it? And you pull it out. It's a big old wad of cash. $10,000. $50 bills. It's about yay thick. Trooper says, let me see that. And he takes it from you and he goes, get back in your car. Keep your hands where I can see them. I got to make some phone calls and radio calls and do whatever I do back in my car. And he comes back a little bit later and he says, well, here's the deal. We're going to let you go today because I've decided that lane change you made back there was not that improper. But we're keeping your money because we think, we being the state of Ohio apparently, we think that it is the proceeds of a drug operation. You're obviously a criminal. So we're going to keep that money. And too bad if you don't like it. And the cop drives off with your money. And now you're sitting by the side of the road going, well, I didn't do anything wrong. All I did was I had some cash on me. And besides that, now I can't buy my car. So you go back to wherever you came from, which I believe I said was Michigan at the beginning of the story, and you contact an attorney. And the attorney tells you that, well, what happened to you is called civil forfeiture. They've taken your money from you because they've deemed it was the product of an illegal criminal enterprise. And they don't need to have a hearing. They don't need to have a trial. They just get to keep your money. And if you want your money back, you've got to file a lawsuit against either the state of Ohio or the municipality that took your money. And the problem is that if you win that case, all you get is your money back. And you say, well, Steve, isn't that a good deal? No, because you've got to pay your attorneys. And by the way, it's going to take you 6 months to a year to do that. So if you pay an attorney $10,000 to get your money back and it takes a year, that means you'll break even a year from now. And when people hear about civil forfeiture, they actually think attorneys or journalists or whoever's talking about it, they think we're making this stuff up. It happens everywhere in all 50 states of America, and it's such a weird and convoluted law that it's been getting more attention lately. There's a very, very simple fix, but the government, the politicians don't want to fix it because they get to keep your money. And in fact, John Oliver's done stories on this. I'm pretty sure that all the other slightly offbeat news organizations have covered it. And civil forfeiture laws are a major problem in America, and they need to be fixed. And like I said, one of the big problems is the police department that seized your money gets to keep some of it. They've got to give some of it either to the state or the feds, depending on which law they claim they seized it under. But the police departments are incentivized. That is, they're paid to take your money because they get a portion of it. They basically get a finder's fee. So why wouldn't they just pull everyone over and take all of their money? Well, it hasn't gotten that bad yet, but it's gotten pretty bad. And the way we know it's gotten bad is the Washington Post did a big article on this about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And the Post actually crunched some numbers, because part of the problem is that the agencies that seize the money aren't terribly transparent about it, and they don't actually tell people, by the way, here's how much money we stole from law-abiding citizens last year. So the Washington Post discovered that since 9/11, which is basically when these laws got really radically changed to be bad for people on the side of the road, there have been 61,000 cash seizures without search warrants or even indictments, just through the equitable sharing program. And that's the federal program that the feds started, where they said basically, hey, if you pull over someone by the side of the road and seize their money, we'll share it with you. We'll share someone else's money with you if you take it. And those 61,000 seizures added up to more than $2.5 billion with a B, okay? State and local authorities got to keep more than $1.7 billion, so they got more than half of the money. And the Homeland Security, Justice, and federal agencies received $800 million. And half of those seizures were less than $8,800. So that is the average person that was involved in this. Gets pulled over by the side of the road. They got $9,000 in cash on them, or $8,000 in cash on them. The cops just say, well, we're going to take your money from you because it's the product of an illegal criminal enterprise, and there's nothing you can do about it. So if you want your money back, sue us. Well, only 1/6, that's 1 out of every 6 people who had their money taken, even bothered to legally challenge this. And it's not because they were guilty. It's because of the costs of the legal actions when you sue the government. But they point out that in the 41% of the cases where they were challenged, the government gave the money back. Okay? So in other words, the government admitted 40% of the time, the government had to give the money back because they had no right to take it. But what about the 5 out of 6 people who didn't bother challenging it because the cost was too much? And so everyone knows what's going on here, okay? The government is overreaching, taking money from innocent people for the wrong reasons, pocketing it, and on the rare occasions they get challenged, oh, we'll give it back to you, sorry. And of course, you're out the legal fees that you spent trying to get your money back. So it turns out that hundreds of state and local departments and drug task forces appear to rely on the seized cash basically to support or supplement their budgets. So if you're a cash-strapped police department someplace, but you've got a major highway passing through your jurisdiction, you just put a couple troopers out there and pull people over all day long and look for cash. When you find cash, you just keep it. You go, yeah, well, that's how we're going to pay our bills this month. It's pretty crazy. Agencies with police known to be participating in black asphalt have seen a jump in 32% in their seizures. Now, what black asphalt is this group that got together, created a website, and it's members only, but you have to be a police department to be a member. And they share information back and forth across jurisdictions and across states. And so if you are, say, in Arizona, you can log on to Black Asphalt and find out about any money that might be heading into your state from some other police department that'll tip you off. And they share information back and forth basically on how to seize money from innocent people. And they often even post photographs where they show off how much money they've seized from people. And they never say, hey, by the way, we seized this money from innocent people. But they do routinely post these photographs bragging about all the money that they've seized. And what's crazy about this is they give some examples in the Washington Post of people who've had their money seized. And there was, for instance, a Chinese-American restaurant operator from Georgia who was pulled over for speeding on I-10 in Alabama. They detained him for a couple hours, and he was carrying $75,000 on him because he's going to buy a Chinese restaurant in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which of course is made famous in a song by the band, but I digress. And there's no question he was going there to buy this restaurant. And in fact, he had all the evidence to back it up. It took him 10 months to get his money back. He did eventually get his money back, but it cost him thousands of dollars in lawyer fees. And of course, he lost the restaurant deal. So he's traveling to buy a restaurant. He's carrying cash on him. The police stop him, take the money, and force him to sue them to get the money back. And by the time he gets it back, he loses his business deal. Another example, a 40-year-old Hispanic carpenter from New Jersey stopped on I-95 in Virginia because he had tinted windows. And police said that he appeared to be nervous. So they searched him, and they took $18,000 in cash he had on him, which was he was going to buy a used car. And He hired a lawyer and he eventually got his money back. But it took him some time, and of course he wasted all that money on the attorney. Like I've said before, in America, if you have to sue somebody and you sue them and win, you normally have got to pay your own attorney fees. And that's true in these cases, and that's one of the things that's so wrong with this. Another example is a 35-year-old African-American owner of a small restaurant in Staunton, Virginia, was stunned when police took $17,000 from him during a traffic stop in 2012. The government offered to settle the case with him by saying, we'll give you half your money back if you agree not to sue us for the other half. And he said, no. And he eventually got back all his money, but he lost the business because he didn't have money to pay his bills. And that's the kind of stuff that happens when they take your money from you and force you to sue them to get your own money back. Now, what's causing people to really freak out about this is they say, wait, this is America. The government can just take my stuff without a hearing, without suing me, without charging me with a crime. And they can. That's the crazy part. The civil forfeiture laws make you sue them to get your stuff back. And you've got to prove that what they took from you is, in essence, innocent. Okay? So the government takes your money from you, and they don't file anything against you. They just take your money from you. So you've got to file the action to get your stuff back. Now, I will tell you that after the uproar over the Washington Post article a couple years ago and other articles that have appeared in different news organizations, some states have stood up and said, you know what, we're going to end this right now. This is out of control. We're going to end this. The state of Michigan, for instance, announced that they were going to resolve this problem and they're going to pass new laws. So Michigan passed new laws about a year ago. And the new laws changed the burden of proof that the government's got to meet to keep confiscated property, okay? And it used to be they had to prove it by a preponderance. More likely than not, it was the result of bad activity. They changed that to clear and convincing evidence. And they claim that that right there is a fix. And you say, wait, but I still got to sue you to get my stuff back? Yes. You can still take my stuff if I've never been charged with a crime? Yes. And I still have to pay my own attorney fees? Yes. Okay, this is not a fix. For whatever reason, people in Lansing and other state capitals love passing laws so they can say, look, we passed a law. And it doesn't actually do much, if anything. Yes, if you have to sue to get your stuff back and you do go to trial on it, you do have a slightly better burden of proof that you don't have to meet depending on how you want to look at it. But it doesn't really solve the problem. And in case you're curious, Michigan police agencies that voluntarily reported this stuff years ago, because they didn't have to report it, reported more than $20 million in civil asset forfeitures just in 1 year. But that is only on drug-specific cases, and that's only about 92% of the agencies in Michigan because they weren't required to file anything, and they didn't bother. Many of them don't. They just take the money and they keep it. So I'm Steve Lehto. I'm an attorney in the state of Michigan, and I'm going to tell you what the extremely easy fix is for this. Somebody needs to actually start agitating along with me. Everyone actually ought to, because there's nothing more frightening than the concept that the government can just take your stuff. I mean, at least the IRS makes you fill out a form and they explain their rationale, right? The cop by the side of the road? No, just give me your money. And by the way, he's wearing a badge and a gun. He's taking your stuff. Any other country in the world, they'd call that robbery. The fact that you get pulled over by somebody who's armed and they take your money? Robbery. In America? No, it's civil forfeiture. Here is the simple solution. You change the law and you say, the government cannot keep your money unless you are convicted of a crime. And to make sure there's a link between the money and the crime, you have to ask the jury during the trial, if you find this person guilty of this crime, you must answer one more question. Was the seized money or property a product of that crime? If yes, government gets to keep the money. If no, government gives back the money. Because otherwise, for instance, they can pull you over for speeding, or they can charge you with something else, take your money and just say, well, you committed a crime, we're going to keep your money. So what you do, very, very simple, like I said, is you make it part of the law that says that the forfeiture is only valid if there's a crime for which there's a conviction and the jury or the judge, whoever's asked to determine guilt or innocence in this case, if that particular entity also determines that the seized property or cash is a product of that crime. And so you have to say, number one, if there's no indictment, if the person's never charged with a crime, you must give them their stuff back. Okay? This is America. I'm innocent until proven guilty. My stuff is innocent until proven guilty, and that's the way the law should read. But number two, make it so that it's part of the verdict decision so that if the person's found guilty, then they can be forced to surrender their stuff. And by the way, if you're not charged with a crime, they have a certain amount of time within which to give you your money back, I would say. And I believe that if you're forced to sue the government to get your stuff back and you win, by definition, it was wrongfully taken from you. The government, should pay your attorney fees and your court costs. That's the only way to level the playing field and to discourage police departments from overreach and just taking stuff by the side of the road. So for the last 20 years, 15 years, primarily since 9/11, but it's been going on for years prior to that, wasn't as widely publicized, there have been robberies at the side of the road committed by police departments and police agencies. They've been overreaching, taking too much stuff. They know it. Everyone knows it. It's been in the news. And the laws that have been passed to, quote unquote, protect us against it are lame. They're toothless. They don't do what they're supposed to do. Very simple solution. So here's, like I said, what you got to do. Change the law and say that if there's no conviction, they can't keep the money. If there is a conviction, then you have to determine, is the stuff tied to the crime? If yes, then the government can keep it. If not, give it back. And if I'm forced to sue to get it back, my attorney fees and court costs should be paid by the losing party. In that case, it would be the government. So that, of course, is why you shouldn't drive while in possession of cash, and a better explanation of civil forfeiture, and the simple solution of how it can be fixed. I know it's an easy solution, and that's why I know the government won't do it. That's why I know politicians won't do it. I wish some politicians would stand up with a little bit of backbone and say, hey, you know something, let's fix this. It's wrong that at the side of the road, cops can just take your money and keep it, okay? They're incentivized to keep your stuff. That's wrong, okay? So somebody needs to step up and change that law. I know it's not going to happen, but I can dream, can I? So again, don't drive while in possession of cash. That's a civil forfeiture problem, and how it can be easily fixed. Questions or comments, shoot my way, lehtoselaw.com, LEHTOSLAW.com. I'm on Twitter at Steve Lehto, at STEVELEHTO. And of course, this show's on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube. Unless, of course, I get pulled over by the side of the road and the cops take it from me. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.